All right, so let me tell you a little bit of a story of the rise and fall of one of our Shopify stores, and really the takeaways that we took away that I think you can apply to your Shopify store or actually any e-commerce store that you might have, or even are thinking of starting, to essentially build a stronger business. What happened is essentially we were scaling actually quite nicely. We were making something like 150,000 in revenue per month. We were approaching Q4, obviously an exciting time for most Shopify stores, and managed to scale quite nicely in November and December. So in November, we're making something like 230,000 in revenue. And in December, we were making 238,000 in revenue, so a little bit more. But then what happened, and I think this is something that many of you guys can relate, we had a massive drop from December to January onwards. Just in that 1 month, right, we dropped from, 240,000 to approximately 50,000 here. So what happened? Obviously, a lot of things happened, and I'm only going to touch on a few main things that I think will really be applicable to you. And that is one, seasonality. And it's both macro seasonality in terms of it's, I think, somewhat natural that obviously Q4 is always the biggest season for e-commerce, and Q1 is the slowest season, and especially December to January, there's a drop-off for most stores. But even here, on top of that, the product itself was also seasonal. So this change obviously is so drastic, right? It's not only explained by the macro seasonality, it's also the product seasonality. So that's issue number one. Issue number two is that we were just too reliant and vulnerable, therefore, to the CPC paid marketing channels that we were running for this store so aggressively, right? And that's paid Facebook ads, paid Google ads, paid TikTok ads, Snapchat, etc., where it was paid ads based on either clicks or impressions, where we were vulnerable to just being so reliant on that when January hit, right, and our ROAS wasn't as good anymore, we had to scale back the budget to keep our profit margin about the same, resulting in such huge volatile shifts, right? So in essence, we were not diversified enough in terms of our marketing channels, in terms of having other non-paid marketing channels. And finally, this actually kind of ties everything together, right? This is a one product store, right? And we were also vulnerable in terms of not being diversified in terms of our product suite, which again ties back to the seasonality, right? Because it was a one product store, we felt that seasonality of that product to its fullest extent, right? And we didn't have other products that maybe even had other seasonalities that would kind of outweigh and counterbalance the seasonality of the main product, right? We were all in on this product, which again makes it easier to scale, but then you're vulnerable to those huge volatile shifts, literally from 1 month to the next, where you're making like 200K less in revenue. And that's really what I want to focus on this video, right? Is how do you diversify and add new products to your existing store, so your existing niche, or maybe even a new store, if you're thinking of launching a new store in a new niche. How do you find great products to add on that are obviously positive ROAS products, right? And do so consistently, not just have a winner once in a while, but consistently and systematically add great products to your store so that this issue doesn't happen to you like it happened to us, right? Where you only have one product and that's your only focus. And then next thing you know, you're making, 200K less than the month before. Now, to also tell you that I'm speaking from my experience, and also to really kind of finish the story on a positive note, we did kind of fast forward a couple of months forward. I think it was, in the summer months were pretty good. For example, in June, we were back to making above the December and November figures, right? So even with, being completely away from Q4, we were making, 270,000 in revenue, and we managed to add new products to our one product store and diversify our product suite, right? To become less vulnerable to those swings. Now, to be completely fair, the seasonality actually helped us here as well in the summer months, but still, I think the takeaways are completely, transferable to you. And again, I think it's a bigger topic, right? A bit of the holy grail of how to find new products consistently is what I want to cover in this video. So let's jump straight in. All right, so how do you find new products to add to your store over and over again consistently that are positive ROAS, right? And again, help you build a more resilient store in your niche, right? And not be dependent or vulnerable to seasonality swings and again, just being over reliant on one product. or again, just finding a new product to launch in a new niche, right? I mean, the supply is just the general question of how to find new products, right? It's obviously a big question. It's a hard one, to be honest, and it's something that doesn't come easy, but I think there's better and there's worse ways to think about it. And through my experience, I can share you my thoughts, and obviously feel free to comment below what you guys think. So as per usual, I have a nice slide which I prepared for you guys. I think it obviously starts off with, so the point I think of the slide is to really create the structure, which I like doing when approaching problems like this, where hopefully it'll also help you to think about this in a structured way, right? So first, there's always going to be some sort of product research phase, right? It can either be your own hypothesis, right? It can be a competitor analysis. I mean, this is typically what I try to think of all the main kind of buckets of where people get product ideas from. And if you listen to all the other stuff out there, I think either you come up with your own idea, right? You might like just see a product on your feed that you think is exciting, right? You might do competitor analysis in your niche, right? You might just like look at what your competitors are doing. Maybe they're selling a product, or they've entered a new niche that you think is exciting for whatever reason. Customer feedback, not to forget, your customers could actually like literally be telling you, hey, do you have this? Do you have that? Or like, I like this product, but like, do you have this add-on? Because I'm actually looking for it. It happens more often than you think. Just most people actually miss the kind of subtle customer feedback because their CRM agent deals with it. And we obviously have also CRM agents, and we automate the shit out of our CRM. But nonetheless, it's still, I think, important for you to be on that automation to kind of tease out the customer feedback, because ultimately they're the ones buying from you. So obviously, if they tell you, hey, try out this new product, then maybe it's worth listening to that advice. Same supply expansion. I actually added this because a lot of people are drop shipping, or they're working with a supplier in China, not only China, obviously, where you'd be surprised how entrepreneurial some of those guys are, right? Where you're only fulfilling one product with that supplier, right? Maybe you're just, a very common situation is you're drop shipping one product with that supplier, but you don't even know all the other products that supplier is involved in. And you'd be surprised, right? If you ask that person, he might tell you, I'm actually doing, I'm doing like 10 other products, right? Like maybe like 10 other niches. It could be like something completely unexpected. It usually is. So I would check with your supplier. Why? Because if you already have a relationship with your supplier, right? And again, beyond that, everything's already set up with your current product. So you have, for example, your drop shipping, and they have an ERP system that's connected to the back end of your Shopify store. Everything's automated. They're fulfilling everything. Everything's great. You kind of trust them. You kind of get to know them. You've already got to know them, right? It's much easier to expand within that. Obviously, you then need to see if those products make sense, but it's worth asking. And then obviously, there's many other ways to approach the product research stage, right? There's a lot of websites like Ecom Hunter, which I'm sure you guys are familiar with, and Ali Hunter. And I don't even know. Like, there's like hundreds of those websites. You can go there. I would be careful. And again, here's my very like over rationalized reasoning why I would be careful with those websites is because you obviously, the beautiful thing about, and what we're going to get into actually all of this later, maybe in a different video, the beautiful, the high ROAS product that you're trying to find, right, is obviously this beautiful balance between there needs to be enough demand for this product, but it's not too saturated in terms of your competition, right? So the supply isn't too saturated. Now, if you go to one of those websites like Ecom Hunter, everyone else is also going to those websites, and sure, there's like premium plans, but ultimately that's not really a hurdle for someone to pay like $20 a month to see some products a bit faster. Ultimately, you're looking at products that are about to become, if not yet already, are about to become overly saturated, right? Now, I'm not saying that you're not going to find any opportunities there, but I would just really watch out for that, because just keep in mind, if there's hundreds of thousands of other people looking at the same products, well, guess what? It's going to be extremely competitive, especially if everyone's starting off at the same time. So I'd really try to think outside the box. I think that that's where the real winners come. And again, it depends, obviously, what you want to achieve. But for me, a successful product is one where I can consistently get above a 3 ROAS in terms of paid channels, and I can scale to above 100,000 spent per month. That's kind of just my initial hurdle that I want to pass. And you might have a different hurdle, right? But if it's an extremely saturated product, obviously, it's going to be hard to get to. Okay, let's move on. product validation. So of course, so like the point is, right now you're just gathering ideas, right? You'll go through all those things, right? You'll scroll through the feed, you'll look at competitors, you'll see what are your customers saying, what are competitor customers saying. You might go to one of those websites like Ecom Hunter. You might talk to your current suppliers or other suppliers, whatever. You do a bunch of research. You have a list of products, right? You need to actually start validating them now. So there's going to be additional validation because guess what? All those product ideas are going to be pretty shit. And that's completely normal, right? That 98% or whatever of them are gonna literally have a zero ROAS, and you can launch Facebook ads and you can have great creatives and they're gonna go to absolute shit. That's completely fine. And that's kind of the great thing that when you do find the 1-2%, right, that do work, it's gonna pay off all of your losers, right? And we're gonna talk about that in more detail. Then what I do is I fill out an Excel due diligence sheet. That's actually what I'm going to show you in this video, where we go into detail about what makes a great product. And I think we're going to get really into the meat of what that means. Anyway, just to finish this funnel, because I'll just show you the overall funnel, and then we'll go in different videos, we'll go into like different aspects, right? So product comparison. So then you fill out the sheet, and what you're going to see is that, I don't know, you first started off with like 20, 30 products, right? You boil it down to, let's say, maybe like 4 or 5, right? Maybe that's even too much, maybe just 2 or 3. You filled out that Excel sheet, which I'll show you. And based on an Excel sheet, you can rank the products, which is actually the last part. So you prioritize the products and then you run the test. Running the test is, again, a topic for another video, which I'll definitely cover. I even wrote how the fuck does this look like, because this is the hardest part. Because especially if you're running product after product, especially in parallel, there's a lot of things you got to do, and you need to be really on top of your operations in terms of automations as well. You need to be automating everything that's humanly possible to automate, and really focusing on running multiple products simultaneously, getting the correct data, and enough data. It needs to be statistically significant, and then adjusting as you go, right? And then actually this adjust it actually loops back up to the top, because based on the data that you have, right, even if you're running tests and they're all failing, but they're all failing slightly differently, right? Like even that is data where you can bring it back up to essentially improve the product research, right? And again, that's just the truth, right? That over time you will become better at then kind of identifying those products, right? Once you've gotten kind of slapped, or I'm thinking of something else. Once you've obviously failed enough and felt the pain of running Facebook campaigns at a 0 ROAS, then and some that are not, but are still unprofitable, like at a 1 ROAS or 1.2 or 1.4 or whatever, and some of them will be break even, whatever, but still not profitable. You'll take that feedback, hopefully, and if you're fast enough and you have a tight enough feedback loop, you'll be able to improve over and over again. So anyway, in this video, I want to actually talk about the Excel sheet for the due diligence. So let's jump into that. The Excel that I use is just kind of designed specifically for myself. I am, believe it or not, happy to share this Excel with you. Just write me an email. But I think more importantly are the ideas that I think you can translate to your own product research. What I do is just an example. So this is just a placeholder to get the point across, right? That for you to fill out yourself. I divided the sourcing Excel into several main categories, which you can actually see here. This is the summary, which is gross margin, risks, opportunities, supplier quality, defensibility / product quality, and ease of testing. I think even if some of those things are hard to quantify, I would argue that it's still worth for you to really go through every single one, and it'll just make you think in a structured way, and it'll just make you then, going through this process, make a better decision, right? Even if now the score, you can argue, those numbers will not be like the perfect answer, right? Going through this, at least for me, I find over and over again allows me to make better decisions. And I think it's a great way, which is also extremely fast, and I'll show you why, to assess products and compare with each other. Because again, we live in a universe with ultimately unlimited amount of products to test, right? There's constantly new products coming out. There's so many products out there. You're never going to test all of them, right? So what you have to become good at is finding the best product given the subset that you're willing to test at the moment. So if you go through, I'll just quickly run through the main categories. So the overview is just, again, when you're analyzing this, are you, and already like touching on just the main basic breakdowns in terms of cost, right? So again, those are random numbers, so like you can kind of ignore them, but just the point is you can already put in the cost of product per unit, the cost of shipping per unit, and the total COGS, which is just the sum of the two. And then your estimated average order value, right? So that's how much you're going to be selling it for, and then already the multiplier, right? So a lot of people have this like rule of thumb that they want to be above a 3x here, right? So they want to sell a product for at least 3 times more than the total COGS that they would be paying the supplier, right? And I just split the COGS in terms of product, in terms of shipping. I think it's always nice to essentially split the two. And again, it depends if you're drop shipping or using a 3PL. I also here have a section for MOQ, so minimum order quantity if relevant. So for example, you might need to order 100 pieces, right? But the point is that ultimately you want to make sure that this number is low, the cost of product per unit, because the cost of shipping will go down asymptotically as you scale up. Because obviously the more product you ship out, the more efficient you're going to be. And especially if you switch to a 3PL, right, then this cost of shipping is going to drop. So yeah, that is if you shift to a 3PL, right? With the drop shipping, there are some economies of scale, but not nearly as much. So you will obviously have to factor in the shipping costs as well. Okay, then you obviously have the gross margin, right, which gets calculated from the numbers above. So from there, we have a break-even ROAS, right? So again, if you're running Facebook or Google or TikTok or Snapchat ads or whatever you are, you need to know your break-even ROAS, which in this case is 2.4, just given that the gross margin is 63%. Actually, there should be a formula here, so hopefully I got this right. But anyway, that's about right. Obviously, break-even ROAS is, again, for every dollar that you put into marketing, you would get 2.4 back. With a 2.4 ROAS, meaning hopefully that this calculation is correct, where this would be enough to cover all your other costs, right? Including marketing, including COGS and shipping and everything else to get the product essentially to the customer, right? And if you're above a 2.4 ROAS, then that's where you would become profitable. So again, I also see this in terms of always within your niche, right? Questions like, is your gross margin competitive to others? And this is where here each field, right, either has a option between yes, no, or to be TBD, so to be decided, or high, medium, low, and again to be decided, right? And they're color coded, right? So again, if I change my mind, I'm like, actually it is, right? Then it becomes green if it's a yes, and if it's high, it's green. If it's medium, it's yellow, and if it's low, it's red. And then there's a whole scoring system that I have, which is essentially just gives you a score based on, again, if it's a yes, you have a higher score. If it's a no, you have a lower score. And if it's to be decided, again, there's no score as of now. And I think you already get the point, right? Then based on all those questions, I can score the final summary on kind of a area by area basis, right? And come up with some sort of like hexagram, I guess this is called, where, is this correct? Yeah, this looks a bit weird, but again, those are placeholder figures where straight away I can see how this product compares, right? In terms of those main areas. And for me, those are the main areas I look at, right? I think everyone looks at those areas just consciously, subconsciously. I think people are just not sometimes very structured, and they're just like, yeah, obviously I need a high gross margin. Like obviously my supplier needs to be great. It needs to be easy to test. Like I want to minimize my risks. I want like the highest upside as possible. And then I also want like a great product ultimately that's defensible, that I can kind of build out into a great brand, right? So everyone I think thinks about those terms, but anyway, that's how I broke it down. So if you, I'll just quickly go through some of the main things, and again, just read this in your own time. I don't need to like say every single thing out loud, but potential to improve gross margin over time. Again, this really depends, and I have a bunch of notes here actually. So yes, because shipping and processing fees, which are necessary. So you can you can obviously have whatever reasons you might have, right? But those are things that you would know if you talk to your supplier. Generally, economies of scale kick in almost anywhere, unless you're really like doing something wrong. And expected discount for bulk orders here, but 0%. But like honestly, I usually see something like 20%. So yeah, again, this is like this isn't a real product, so take this with a grain of salt. But I'll show you then the Excel where we actually have live products and we compare them with each other. Again, the point is that you do this with your own products and not like obviously like the products where we have done this analysis on like months ago, right? Won't be relevant, but I'll also be releasing some videos with some fresh products as well. Anyway, key risks to think about. This is really from all the kind of shit I went through. I think with my own stores, that's the main things I want to quickly tick off, right? So trademark, copyright infringement, product liability issues, risk of cannibalizing existing product sales. So it's a sneaky one. Make sure you're not, if you're adding a new product to an existing store, you don't want to be cannibalizing the sales you're already making. Oversaturation from competitors, a huge one. I mean, this really deserves a video of its own. And there is a huge analysis I do on this as well. Again, for a separate video, but here this is like, by the way, a lot of those will be intuitive for you to put and just think about it and compare products for you to then get further down that funnel, right? So the funnel that I am showing that I went through here, right? This is the product validation / filling out Excel stage for you to get to this like boil down product comparison stage, right? Again, this isn't the place where you go completely crazy with researching everything about the product, right? But you do, I would say, like 20-30 minutes per product to kind of figure out those basic things, right? Like you can kind of already, like if you just Google the product and just see how many other listings there are on Google Shopping, and again, just how many ads you've seen on like the Facebook ads library, and again, just like intuitively you'll be like, okay, oversaturation. Is it high, medium, or low, right? And then off you go. Degree of commoditization. So again, you don't want to be selling like paper clips, or like that's a bad example, but something that's extremely like toilet paper, right? It's extremely commoditized. Honestly, that's a bit more for Amazon sellers to focus on, and just get extreme volume, but like just win because they have like a gazillion reviews, right? For Shopify, this isn't really, I think, the business model here. You want something unique. You want something to be in a niche that people can be excited about. You want something that's, again, we're going to get into it, defensible and not easy to copy. Barriers to entry. I can talk about all of those for hours, which I won't. Seasonality risk, pricing power, regulatory issues, and COVID sales inflation. I mean, again, this is I put this just in case. It is a big thing. Like we definitely also had a store that was inflated because of COVID. I'm sure a lot of you guys did. And when you're looking into new products, you want to be sure you're not vulnerable to that. Obviously, you want a product that also does well outside of COVID or any sort of kind of macro, let's say, trend that won't be here forever. Okay, key opportunities. Repetitive subscription nature of the product. Subscription products are great if you can get one. It's not a must, but always think about it. Benefit from underlying market growth. Obviously, do your research with Google Trends. See if the market of whatever niche you're in is growing, right? If it's, like there's just a few obvious examples where you don't want to be entering a niche that's literally stagnating, right? And I always also ask myself, do I actually have this question here? Will this product be around in 5 years? I think is a good question to ask. I have it here on defensibility, but I think this actually ties in with underlying market growth, right? As in, if the market, at least like obviously no one's going to be like being able to exactly predict if the market's going to grow in the next like 3-4 years or even like 1-2 years, but at least will it be around and will it be big enough in a couple of years from now? Okay, potential to cross and upsell goes without saying. Potential to price discriminate. You want to be able to obviously adjust prices depending on different customer segments. I mean, it's like economics 101. The more you can price discriminate, the higher your profit margin is going to be. Potential to private label customize. some products are much easier to private label and customize than others, also depending on your supplier. Some products are really set in stone and the suppliers like take it or leave it. Others can be adjusted. Others have like different options and add-ons and blah, 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 blah. So obviously think about that. Amazon compatible, you always want to have the option to also be able to sell on Amazon. So just keep that in mind. Why not have the option? 3PL compatible at scale. So obviously some items, I think if you scale, I make this point in many other videos, you want to be able to not only dropship, but to also fulfill from a third-party fulfillment center. So make sure that that's possible. Where, to be honest, all products should be okay with that, unless it's an extremely heavy product or extremely weird dimensional product, which, by the way, one of our stores, actually the store in the beginning of this video, is a very weird dimensional product where this is actually a huge issue. And again, all of those give you points that will add up, right? So don't like take each one question as like the most important one. It's just, again, it'll give you a very like well-rounded way to think about those things. Okay, moving on. Supplier quality. Obviously, you want a great supplier, right? I think I actually split it in terms of the specific supplier you're talking to and then supplier landscape. Why? Because if your supplier fails, or they leave, or they go bankrupt, or whatever, can you switch to a different supplier, right? So ability to switch between different suppliers. This is a good or bad thing, right? Because ultimately, that's also your defensibility. If it's very easy to switch suppliers, it's good for you in case your supplier fucks up, but it's also good for your competitors, right? And the barriers to entry are lower, right? So watch out, but I mean, again, things to think about. And large number of suppliers for this product, right? So again, it's a double-edged sword. It'll be easier for you to shift around and to also negotiate prices the more suppliers there are, right? On the other hand, it's also going to be easier for your competitors, and generally those markets will be more saturated, right? In terms of your specific supply, I think those things are pretty obvious. People anyway, like consciously or subconsciously think about those things, but they should obviously be professional, high quality, have a Shopify integration, kind of no shit. They should have a decent CRM capability as well with you, and then like if you have any questions or there's any issues, they reply to you on the same day and things like that. Communication quality needs to be nice. Obviously, there's still a language barrier with some suppliers that is painful sometimes. So make sure you do have a solution for that, and then potential for a special supplier contract, right? Where sometimes some suppliers are just more willing to customize the terms for you, especially if you know them. Okay, now going into the last two segments, and that is competitive edge analysis. I split it here in terms of defensibility and product quality. Let's zoom in because I think this is important for y'all. Okay, I'll just read the questions. Just think about it because I think those are very important questions for you to kind of at least think about for 2 seconds before you make a decision to actually test the product. Could another store easily copycat this product? Would it have significant word of mouth effect? Can we easily private label the product? Risk of customers buying in Walmart, Amazon instead? Factors that make it stand out from competitors? And will the product be around in 5 years? Right? So I actually touched on some of those points already. All those things, if answered to the maximum, will make you more defensible, will make you stand out from your competition, and will make it just harder for competitors to compete with you, to copy you, to catch up to you, to do anything in terms of your business. Product quality. Product quality beat customer expectations at current price. This is, again, a bit of a subjective thing, but you generally want to beat customer expectations at the price, right? Just price to quality needs to be good. Obviously, that also compared to competition. And if selling organically on Amazon, would it get a rating above 4.5? I think that's a nice thought experiment. If you just like put this thing on Amazon, do you think it would get above a 4.5 rating? Because people kind of trust those reviews quite a bit. And above 4.5 is obviously, I think people are generally like pretty happy. I mean, honestly, above a 4 is also fine, but something to think about. Okay, ease of testing. Again, let's say you have a product using this analysis or not, right? Or doing something faster, just think about it, or you have this product you're excited about. Can the product be dropshipped easily? Well, that's important for you to find out, right? Some products have a MOQ, right? That you need to go around with. So this number that I was mentioning here. Your supplier might tell you, no, sorry, you need to order at least 100 units. We do not dropship, right? And then you either need to find a supplier that does dropship, or go with MOQ, at which point you wouldn't be dropshipping anymore. Or again, you have an agent who takes on the MOQ and then they dropship on your behalf. So there's always a way around it, but obviously you want to test fast and you want to test efficiently. So again, it's important to think about those things. Can it be shipped in a reasonable time frame? I might as well correct my spelling mistakes while I'm doing this video. So obviously you want to make sure it can be shipped out. Are there any geographical limitations? Some suppliers do not ship into certain countries, or certain countries are, again, there's all kinds of like import duties and whatnot. Difficulty of launching first marketing campaign. Will it be easy? Like, let's say, okay, you have a product now and you can drop ship it and everything else is fine. It's an amazing product. Can you easily launch the first Facebook campaign, or will your Facebook ad get blocked straight away and everything will go to shit? Or you don't even want to test on Facebook, you want to test on TikTok, or you don't want to test on TikTok, you want to just test on Google, or you just want to test organically, or you don't even want to do paid ads, you just want to essentially create a bunch of amazing creatives and launch them on TikTok and on Instagram or whatever. Can you easily do that? And then the question is, well, then how easy is it to create the first creatives, right? Again, some of them, some products are just easier to find creatives and create new creatives than other products. And again, if it's extremely difficult to create your first creative, then no matter how easy it is to create your first marketing campaign, if you don't have enough creatives to really test it, then that's again another hurdle. Difficulty of setting up landing page. I mean, this should really be easy. And if not, there's like a million videos online on how you can do it. Speed at which initial tests can be done. And that's kind of a bit of a summary. Now, we then, I even have this. Nice. Okay, so we have a bit of we have a summary of results. And again, I just did like a score and I did like a weighting. And I mean, again, I'm not going to go into it too much, maybe in a different video, but the point is, there's a score based on what I think is a good gross margin, what I think, again, a yes score is higher than a no, and a high score is higher than a low. And then I can kind of map out immediately on this graph all the different areas and essentially be like, okay, here the gross margin is great, but the opportunities are pretty low. And then I can compare this between three different products, right? So here there's three different products. Let's say you do this analysis for three different products, and you can then compare the three of them, overlay them on one graph, and be like, okay, the gray one, so which one is this? Is this like the first one? It's the third one. It has the best gross margin, the highest opportunities, and the most defensibility, so it actually looks pretty good. But in terms of, and actually the lowest risks. Okay, so like product 3 here would be a clear winner, right? And you could see it straight away. But then you can see, well, I don't know, there still might be, differences between products 1 and 2, and you still want to test one of them. So this could be an interesting way for you to check this out. Finally, I think when you test, it's good to just put all the different marketing channels next to each other and ask yourself, okay, what am I going to test, and where do I kind of see the potential in the beginning, right? So I just put the main ones: Facebook and Instagram ads, Google ads, TikTok, SEO, organic, influencer marketing, affiliate, referral marketing, email marketing, and other. Obviously, add the channel that you like most and then kind of prioritize it, right? Because again, some products you want to test with TikTok, other products you want to test with Google Ads search, other products you want to do like YouTube ads. Some of them you want to do organically. I mean, there is no right way. It depends. I mean, there is a right way if you know the exact product, but obviously not knowing the product, I think this is something you'll have to also come up with. And I talk about this also in my marketing videos. So that was a quick overview on how to think about which products to source. And in subsequent videos, I will talk about how you can actually run the test and actually find positive ROAS products. So hopefully this was helpful, and check out my other videos. Hey, before you bounce, consider subscribing to our channel, but only if you've actually enjoyed the video and found at least a few valuable things for your Shopify store. Also, check out our free Shopify app, Trackidex. We have a link in the description below. We're developing new features literally every day, and we're also excited to actually hear your feedback on some of the next features we should develop. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next video.